Hello, today we have another fabulous webinar presented by Alex Barthet of the Barthet Law Firm. Today we're going to discuss step-by-step guide to getting paid after you record a lien. My name is Ariella Wagner. I am the founder of SunRay Construction Solutions, a national preliminary notice service with an extraordinary software that helps track your lien and bond claim deadlines. And without further ado, I shall introduce the fabulous Alex Barthet.
Thanks, Ariella. Hi, everybody. This is Alex Barthet. I am a board-certified construction lawyer here in South Florida, and today we're going to talk about how to get paid after you record a lien. We're going to go through it step by step so you understand the process and what you need to do to increase the chances of getting paid on your liens. So let's get started. So today we're going to talk about a series of steps. So step one is we're going to verify that you have lien rights. Step two is you're going to comply with the notice to owner rules. Step three is you're going to comply with the claim of lien rules. Step four is you're going to comply with other lien law requirements. We're going to go through what those are. Step five, you're going to foreclose on your lien and any other claims that you may have, and we're going to talk about the legal process in there. Step six, we'll talk about how the foreclosure sale actually happens. And finally, step seven, to the extent that the foreclosure sale doesn't produce any or all of the money that you're owed, you can pursue what's called the deficiency, and we'll talk about that. If you have any questions throughout the process, you can always ask your questions through the chat box in the GoToMeeting app. So if you ask any questions, make sure to do it during the presentation. We'll answer all the questions at the end. Make sure not to include any names of people or companies in your questions. So step one, how to verify that you, in fact, have lien rights. So who has lien rights and who doesn't? So laborers, that's John Smith the carpenter, has lien rights. Architects, engineers, and land surveyors that are rendering professional services, they each have lien rights. Contractors, and under the lien law, that's not a definition based on the scope of work, but it's defined based on who has a direct contract with the owner. So for example, I may be a plumber, but under the lien law, I'm considered a contractor if in this one contract I have a contract direct with the property owner. So contractors have lien rights. Subcontractors have lien rights. That's anyone that has a contract with a contractor. Subcontractors. And now we get to the bottom rung of those that have lien rights, meaning anyone below these folks in the chain of contract no longer have lien rights. So material suppliers or rental companies to owners, contractors, subcontractors, and subcontractors, they have lien rights as well. So for example, I may be a shoring supplier. I provide scaffolding and shoring on a project, and if my contract is with the subcontractor, I still have lien rights on that job. If I'm the plumbing supply house and my contract is with the subcontractor, and all I do is deliver materials, then I also have lien rights. So who doesn't have lien rights? Material suppliers to material suppliers don't have lien rights. So if I'm GE and I sell switchgear to the electrical supply house, and then they sell it to the subcontractor, GE, in my example, doesn't have lien rights because they are a material supplier to a material supplier. And then subcontractors no longer have lien rights, meaning they are too far down the chain, too far away from the owner, and the law says that they do not have lien rights. So generally speaking, if you're in the top category of folks, then you have lien rights on the project that you're improving. So once we verify that you have lien rights, what's the next step? the next step is to comply with the notice to owner rules. So many of you are probably familiar with these rules, but it never hurts to go over them again. People always learn something a little new. You need to comply with the notice to owner requirements. So that means you need to serve a notice to owner no later than 45 days from your first work or delivery of materials on the project to all interested parties. That includes the general contractor. So for example, if I am the subcontractor on a project, not only does my notice to owner need to go to the owner, it needs to go to the general contractor. 45 days is the date it must be received. So you should do it much sooner. So if I put it in the mail on the 44th day, it's probably not going to get delivered on time. So we recommend our clients using a service like SunRay, start that notice to owner process early. Typically, once you execute a contract, we recommend that you start the notice to owner process right then. Don't wait until you get close to your 45 days. Know that it can be served, the notice to owner can be served before you commence work. So you don't have to wait till you step foot on the job to serve your notice to owner. However, it must be after you have a contract for the work in order to perform it. So for example, if someone gives me a non-binding letter of intent and then I serve my notice to owner before, once I sign that non-binding letter of intent, probably not a good notice to owner if I subsequently start work on the job. If I sign the contract, in contrast, if I sign a contract today, and I may not show up on the job for 3 months, if I serve my notice to owner after I sign my contract, but before I show up on the job, that notice to owner is good. Now, if you provide what are called specially fabricated materials, meaning not special order, by the way, this is specially fabricated materials, materials that can only be used on that job. The classic example is if I make trusses for a house, once I start cutting that lumber in my warehouse for these trusses, if I don't use them on this house, I probably won't be able to use them anywhere else. So something that's specially fabricated just for this one project and likely has no use aside from this project, that notice to, the notice to owner for that work starts, the 45 days starts from the time you start to fabricate the material in your shop. So you may never deliver it to the job site, but your 45 days starts from the day you start to fabricate it in your shop. How do you count the 45 days? It includes weekends and holidays. It starts from the day after day one is the day after the current day. So if I put, let's assume that I step foot on the job today. I'm going to start counting my 45 days tomorrow. So tomorrow is day one. I'm going to count every weekend and legal holiday in between. And when I arrive at the 45th calendar day, if that 45th day lands on a weekend or legal holiday, or a holiday that the mail isn't delivered, then my delivery date, my 45th day, moves to the next business day. So if the 45th day was a Saturday, it moves to the Sunday, then it moves to the Monday. And if Monday was a holiday when the mail was closed, then it would move to the Tuesday. Again, you should not be taking chances and waiting that long to serve your notice to owner, but if you want to know how to count it, that's how you do it. And finally, just in case you didn't know, if you have a direct contract with the property owner for your materials or services, you do not need to serve a notice to owner. I recommend that you do, but it's not technically required. Step 3, comply with all the claim of lien rules. So you need to record your claim of lien within 90 days from your last work or delivery of materials onto the project. Remembering, of course, that 90 days is not 3 months, right? Some months have more than 30 days, some months have fewer than 30 days. 90 days, just like the notice to owner rule, includes every weekend and holiday. So if my last day on the job is today, I'm going to start counting, and tomorrow is day one. I'm going to count 90 days, and if the 90th day lands on a weekend or legal holiday, when the clerk is closed, then I'm going to roll it to the next business day when my deadline arrives. So it's possible that you could, in certain circumstances, have 93 days to record the lien. You can record the lien before you finish the work. We have clients that, as a collection tool, decide, you know what, I'm going to still work on this job, but I am going to record my lien now. So I'm still working every day on the job. But I'm going to record my lien so that they know that I'm not happy that I'm not getting paid. So again, the 90-day rule is the outside deadline. It can be done anytime before, including when you're still working on the job. Last work does not include punch list work or warranty work. So it's got to be work under your contract, but it can include work that is performed pursuant to an approved change order. Now, if you need help counting all of these dates, we made an app. If you go to the iPhone App Store or the Google Play Store and you type in the lien zone, you see it at the bottom right of the screen, THELIENZONE all together, you'll find our Calculien app, which will calculate for the notice to owner and claim of lien deadlines for you, so you don't have to count on your fingers anymore. Step 4, comply with all of the other lien law requirements. So let's go through some of the main ones. There are others, but these are the ones that we run into on a very regular basis. If you are in privity, meaning you have a direct contract with the property owner, in addition to everything I've told you already, you need to do an additional step. You need to serve a contractor's final affidavit at least 5 days before you file a lawsuit to foreclose on your lien. Now, this contractor's final affidavit is a simple document, quite frankly, simpler than the claim of lien. It says you're the contractor, you list who the owner is, you describe the project by its address, you state how much money you're owed, and you list all of the unpaid vendors that potentially have lien rights. And this needs to be served, again, no later than 5 days before you file a lawsuit to foreclose on your claim of lien. Now, if you happen to have received a request for sworn statement of account during the course of the job or after you liened, you need to make sure that you timely and properly respond to all requests for sworn statement of account that you receive. Because if you do not, and if it was properly served and delivered to you, then you will lose your lien rights. Meaning you may have valid and enforceable lien rights. You receive a request for sworn statement of account, and you either don't respond improperly, meaning not notarized or the information is incorrect, or you respond late, meaning you deliver it back after 30 days, you will lose your lien rights. If the notice of commencement has been terminated, then you don't have the 90 days to lien, which I indicated before. You only have 30 days from the date of termination of the notice of commencement. How do you know a notice of commencement is terminated? You should receive written notice of that termination within via certified mail, delivered to you or the address that you have listed in your notice to owner. And again, remember, if you receive such a document, you only have 30 days to record your lien. You do not have 90 days. Okay, so now we've touched all the bases. We know that our lien is proper and it's been recorded. Now what? Now you need to file a civil lawsuit to foreclose on your claim of lien. And this needs to be done no later than 1 year from the recording date of the claim of lien. This period of time can be shortened. you could receive in the mail, via certified mail, what's called a notice of contest of lien. From the date that document is dated, it'll have a clerk's stamp on it. From the date of that clerk's stamp, you have 60 calendar days to file your lawsuit to foreclose on your claim of lien. You no longer have a year. It's now been shortened to 60 days from that date. And again, you will receive a notice of contest of lien via certified mail. There are other ways to shorten this period of time that the owner and the contractor have. Another one is called a summons to show cause. This reduces the time you have to file your lawsuit to foreclose on your lien down to 20 days. Unlike the notice of contest, which is handed to you or sent to you via certified mail, a summons to show cause is served upon you by the process server or the sheriff. It is a real lawsuit naming you as a defendant, and now you have 20 days to file your action to foreclose on your claim of lien. If you miss either of these deadlines, the notice of contest of lien deadline or the summons to show cause deadline, you will lose your lien rights. Your lien will automatically expire, and you will no longer have any right to foreclose on the property. I suggest that you don't wait a year anyways. Good collection practice would dictate that within about day 60 of your last work on the job, if you haven't been paid, that's when you need to start having a discussion in your office about putting a lien in place. Do not wait till the 70th, 80th, or 85th day to start the lien process. You should start that process, start discussing and moving that ball forward at about day 60. Once you record your lien, then you should actively be pursuing collection efforts, phone calls, emails, letters, for usually, I recommend, between another month to 2 months on your own to see if you can get paid. If you've made the business decision that you want to continue to pursue this claim, and you're not making headway after you've tried everything, and by the way, I would even recommend getting up and parking yourself in the owner or the client's office to try to get paid, saying, I'm not leaving until I get a check. That works for some of our clients, by the way. But if none of that works, then I would suggest that that's the point in time that you retain the services of a construction lawyer to pursue this civil lawsuit to foreclose on your lien. Again, do not wait the full year. This 1 year is the outside deadline that you have. In addition to suing for foreclosure of lien, you can sue for anything else, any other legal right that you have. For example, you may decide to sue the person that hired you for breach of contract. Maybe you don't have a contract with the owner, so you have maybe you're a subcontractor, but you know that the owner hasn't paid for the services yet. You can sue the owner for what's called unjust enrichment, meaning you rendered materials or services to the owner. They are unjustly enriched because they haven't paid for it, so they are liable to you for that amount. These are other legal claims that you can bring. There are even many others that you and your lawyer can consider. But handling construction litigation in South Florida now for 20 years, I would tell you the most powerful tool in the arsenal is definitely your ability to foreclose on your lien. Now, let's talk briefly about the process of the foreclosure. It is a civil complaint, meaning a complaint is prepared, a summons is issued by the clerk, and it's given to a process server to serve on the defendant, so in our case, the owner. If the owner doesn't respond, then you get what's called a default and a default judgment, meaning you win and they lose automatically. They have 20 days from the day they're served to respond. Now, if they respond on their own because the court permits it, or they hire a lawyer, they may decide to file what's called a motion to dismiss, saying that something in the papers that was given to them is not legally permissible, or they may file an answer. If they are forced to respond, then the case will continue through what is the longest and typically most expensive part of a case, and that is the discovery phase. So there are interrogatories, which are written questions that you send to the other side. They have to answer in writing. They can send you written questions. requests for production, where the parties exchange documents, and depositions, where they come before you, your lawyer, and the court reporter raise their right hand, and then they are asked questions for 1, 2, 4, 8 hours. Anybody that has information can be deposed. You may be deposed in the course of this collection process. Depending on the complexity of your case, you may need to get an expert, someone that will opine to the judge about certain issues in the case, whether the code was followed, whether the job was in fact delayed or not delayed, any damages that someone suffered. And then you'll ultimately have the trial, where the parties get together and it's the actual culmination of the litigation. Witnesses are called on the witness stand, the judge or jury hears the evidence, and they will render a decision on who's right and who's wrong in the case. That entire process, if it goes through all the steps that are defined above, usually takes between 8 and 16 months of time. However, most every case settles, and it usually settles somewhere prior to trial, usually in the discovery phase of the case. All right, so let's talk about the foreclosure sale, step 6. This is an online public sale of the property. So what happens is, let's assume that you've went through the case and you won. And now the judge says, okay, you're entitled to foreclosure for $1 million on the property, meaning you have a judgment for $1 million. This property is put up in the online public sale, and bidders can bid up the price of the property. Your bid, meaning your judgment amount, is the equivalent of actual money, meaning you bid up to your judgment amount. So in my example, let's say it's $1 million. If the final winning bid is over your judgment amount, meaning someone else from the public decided to show up online and buy the property, and they were willing to pay more than your judgment amount, again, and if we take my example, they were willing to pay $1,001,001, then they will deposit that cash with the clerk. The clerk will then pay you out of those proceeds, and then you've been paid. If unfortunately the final bid is under your judgment amount, this will result in you getting ownership of the property, which is probably something you're not all that interested in, because if you take the property, then you take it subject to the taxes, meaning you'll have to pay tax on it. It's a piece of property. Maybe it's a partially completed building. Even if it isn't, if someone walks on it and hurts themselves, they may sue you. So you probably need to get insurance. And any superior lien holders, like a first mortgage or a first mortgage and a second mortgage, or lienors that may have superior rights to you, they are not wiped out in this foreclosure process. So as a result, they may foreclose you out and take ownership of the property from you. Now, this may not sound great, and it could be problematic, but the reality is that most owners don't want to lose their property because they have a lot of equity in it. So if you're owed money on a project and you're going to foreclose out the owner more likely than not is going to want to come up with the cash to pay you, because what you're owed may be less than the equity that they'll lose if they lose the property. Because once you take it from them, all of their equity, whatever they paid to get to that point, is lost. It is all to your benefit, subject to any prior liens, like, again, a construction loan on the property. Now, if you don't recover enough money to pay your judgment, you can pursue the owner or others for the remaining balance. Meaning, if you're still owed money, let's take my example. You're owed $1 million. No one shows up to bid at the sale for whatever reason, and now you take the property. So you still are owed money. You can get what's called a deficiency judgment, which is a piece of paper that says you can now pursue, in our example, the owner for the remaining balance. So you can garnish his or her bank accounts. If they have a plane or a boat or cars or equipment or an office with stuff in it that belongs to them, you can send the sheriff out to go get it and have a public sale. All of this takes effort, legal fees, and costs money to do, but it doesn't mean that if you don't make your money back in the foreclosure sale that you have no remedy. You still do. So if you have any questions about this process or anything we covered, go ahead and submit them now. If you want to learn more about liens, bonds, contracts, and collections, we have a weekly podcast. It's called the Lien Zone Podcast. You can go to thelienzonepodcast.com and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Before we answer any questions, if there are any, our next webinar is titled How to Stop Work If You're Not Getting Paid. That's on April 25th from 9 to 9:20. Again, all the webinars we do every month are free. And then we have a live event May 21st from 8 to 11 at the Courtyard Miami. And it's a 3-hour deep dive into liens, bonds, contract terms, and getting paid best practices. You can sign up for all the webinars and the live event at sunraynotice.com/education. Ariella, do we have any questions? Do we still have Ariella?
Yes, we still have Ariella. Ariella had a malfunction and I'm still here, so love technology. Okay, let's see. We received a lovely compliment from one of our guests at the webinar. So they said, thank you very much. And thank you for joining us on this webinar. But right now we do not have any questions. But if you do have a question, please feel free to send Alex or me an email. We would be happy to answer any questions. One of the things that is very important is making a smart business decision on a dollar value when you are going to sue someone for non-payment. So if anyone has any questions on when should I pull the trigger on that lawsuit, please feel free to reach out to us and we can also help you make that business decision. The person that just asked a question that you can't subscribe on the podcast, we will send you an email shortly. In fact, maybe what we could do is you could go back one page, Alex, if you wouldn't mind. So maybe that person can try to subscribe on that podcast. Can you go back on your PowerPoint?
Yep. There we go.
Thank you.
So if you go to thelienzonepodcast.com, you should be able to get to the Lien Zone Podcast page. But if you go to any of the your podcast players and type in The Lien Zone, THELIENZONE, all together, no spaces, it should come up. If you have any problems subscribing to the Lien Zone Podcast, just send me an email, alex@barthet.com. I'd be happy to walk you through the process.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm very excited for our next webinar because one of the discussion points that is very important is you could be working on a project, not getting paid, and there might be terms and conditions in your contract that say, I'm sorry, even if you're not getting paid, you have to continue working or they can actually sue you. So our next webinar is a really fabulous webinar to attend. So if anyone, again, has any additional questions, feel free to send us an email. And I wish everyone a sunny day. And thank you so much, Alex.
You're very welcome. Everyone have a great day.